Hi, Julie Jones from SSB Performance, Smarter, Stronger, Better Mindset Training, here with this week's Mindset Made Simple Tip of the Week, brought to you by Game Day Sportswear. This week, we are talking about stories. The stories we tell ourselves and how they affect our performance. And once upon a time, there was a bunch of athletes who liked to tell stories. These stories were full of colorful words and images, and they weren't always based on facts. In fact, they had a lot of should-haves, would-haves, could-haves, must-haves, I have to, and I need to's. Storytelling's an art. In fact, if you come to my public speaking class, I will tell you time and time again that telling a story is the best way to connect to your audience. It's the best way to persuade. It's the best way to sell. It's the best way to get people involved in what you're doing. Stories are awesome. Watch any TED Talk and you'll see amazing storytellers. And that's great if you want to sell, persuade, connect. But if you want to perform better, we've got to stop telling ourselves stories. I asked a couple weeks ago with one of the teams I was working with, I said, tell me most recently a time that you told yourself a story that ended up being nowhere near what reality was. Everyone had an example. Everyone had an example. And here's the facts about those examples. In none of them, not one, was there an instance when the story that they told themselves was better than the ending. Oh my gosh, I can't get I'm not going to be able to get all this done, or I can't do this, or because of this, or I did this last time, so this is going to happen. And if I don't, then this. All of these things are the things that we go through in our heads constantly. Would've, should'ves, can'ts, might, musts, need to, have tos. These are constricting. They constrict us. They are the opposite of what Barbara Fredrickson talks about with broaden and build. They don't help us look for opportunities. In fact, they get us focused on these rigid constrictions. In fact, when we're focused on these rigid constrictions, our brain gets so constipated with all of these things that it has a hard time sending the signals to the muscles that we need to actually do the job that we want to do. So these stories that we tell ourselves about what might happen or what we have to do, I have to make the first shot, or the rest of my game is going to be horrible. I have to do this or else. These things make it hard to focus and be on time. In fact, the author of, let me make sure I get it right, Golf Beneath the Surface, as Dr. Raymond Pryor says, that our thoughts and the stories we tell ourselves take us off time. And we say present, but it's the same thing. Maybe talking to your athletes or those you lead about being on time, because they get it, right? Get your foot down. You've got to be on time, or you've got to be on time. So maybe they'll understand that being on time mentally is just as important as being on time physically. In fact, if we aren't on time mentally, we will not be on time physically. If we're thinking about what might happen, or if we're bringing in what already happened, and we're talking about thinking and ruminating on those stories, then we're not on time. We're off time. They take us way off time. And they inhibit our ability to do what we need to do, because we can't do more than one thing at a time. We can't. We are not good multitaskers. In fact, at the University of Utah, researchers there found that 2.5% of us can multitask. The rest of us are joking ourselves. So if we're talking about stories, or thinking about these stories of all the things we have to do, or all the things we should have done, or all the things that might happen, we are not able to be on time. I was watching The Quarterback again the other day. This is my show right now, slowly getting through it, obviously. And Kirk Cousins was in the playoffs, or getting to the playoffs. And this narrative about him not being a big-time, big-game quarterback is chasing him. And my thought was, when he was up under center, was this. Is he thinking about how this play is going to make that go away, the opinions of others? Or is he thinking about what he needs to do to get the ball, to drop back, to find his receivers? Because if he's thinking about the first, he won't be able to do the second. Because we suck at multitasking. We can't do it. We don't do it well. We think we do, but really, we aren't focused on what is real. If we're telling our stories, we're not focused on what is real. We're focused on make-believe. And we've made that make-believe up. So what do? How do we get ourselves from from focusing on these stories that hinder our performance. There's a couple things. We can use a silly side, or we can use a more curious and maybe deliberate side. But the silly side can go like this. We tell the story in a Sesame Street voice. Oh, here's the story again. Oh, telling our same story. The story that you suck, you suck, you suck, or you should have, or you would have. We can use a different voice and really make us realize that this is a make-believe scenario. There are nothing based in fact on what we're telling ourselves. I can't get this done. Really? You can't get it done? You know when the test is. You know how to plan your time. We can do these things. But when we get caught up in our stories, we're wasting time. And we're not focused on the important things. We can also take one word out of the story, like shoulda, or suck, and say it like 20 times. And when you get to the 15th time, you're like, okay, what am I doing? And then you realize that these are just noises, that truthfully, the word has no meaning. In fact, when I'm working with my teams, I often ask, what is good or bad? A strike to a pitcher is awesome. That same strike to a batter totally sucks. To the umpire, he doesn't care. He's calling a ball or a strike. So one pitch, 3 different meanings. Or this. I ask my teams often, do you like to run races? How many of you think races are awesome? With the exception of track people, very few people raise their hands. I personally like to run races. Then I ask about Starbucks. How many of you love Starbucks? Okay, now we've got hands waving all over. On the other hand, they love Starbucks. They think it's great. I, on the other hand, think it's a waste of time. You're paying overpriced. You're waiting in this ridiculous line for garbage flavored water. It's really expensive. I think Starbucks is stupid. My opinion. They hate races. I like races. I think Starbucks is stupid. They like Starbucks. What really is good or bad? All the things in the story we're telling ourselves are bad based on our beliefs of that. But according to someone else, it might not be so bad. So it's time to start thinking about the fact that those words are just noise. We're the ones giving meaning to them. What we believe is all about that story. So you don't like your silly voice or saying something 50 times, stupid, and then realizing that it's just a noise, it's just a word. We're the one adding more on to it. We shouldn't be shooting all over ourselves, right? Those two things don't help us. Well, if we don't like those fun games, and let's talk about what Marty Seligman from the University of Pennsylvania talks about in his disputation. Let's go through our ABCs. What activates this story? Where'd it come from? What do we believe about it, both rationally and irrationally? And then once we realize what we believe about this shoulda, or suck, the words that really have no meaning, but we, based on our beliefs, they do, then we can look and see what the consequences of those beliefs are. If I believe that I have to make this shot or the rest of my game is going to go rip, what does that do to me? Is it helping? Probably not. Probably not helping. Not helpful. Then we can get into the D of the ABC, activate, beliefs, consequences, disputation, and say, is this true? Are there people who miss their first shot and actually have a good game? Are there times in my past that I've actually missed my first shot and had a good game? Then we look at what the facts are, because facts equal confidence. Stories equal fear. Facts equal confidence. Boil it down to the actions, the behaviors, the truisms that are there. Is it useful? Is it good? Is it helping me? Is this story helping me get things done? If it's not, let's rewrite it. After all, we are the authors of our own stories. So we can be silly, use a voice, say a word 20 times, or we can dispute these things, activating event, beliefs, consequences, disputation, and then we get into a different place where we can say, that's a story. That's not the truth. It's not about how I feel. It's about the behaviors I need to take right now to get this done. And if I'm focused on my story, I can't be focused on my actions. We can't do both. We're not part of that 2.5%. I know I'm not, and I doubt you are either. And I doubt Kirk Cousins is either, and that's why he needs to be focused on the snap and the play and not what the pundits are saying about whether or not he's a big-time quarterback. All those things affect us, but they don't have to control us. And we write our own stories. So my question to you this week is, what stories are you telling yourself? And how can you rewrite them to help you? Or how can you notice and be aware, because we know that's our superpower. Oh, I'm telling myself a story again. Okay, no time for that right now. It's not story time. It's not once upon a time. It's about what can I do now? So this week, think about your stories. Talk to those you lead about the stories that they tell themselves and give them a tool to help them use these things or use their presence, their being on time to help their performance. If you'd like to dive into disputation, JulieJ at sspperformance.com. Hit me up. Let's get together. Have a great week and tell yourself some good stories.